Good morning. I am the Rev Ellen Quaadgras, serving in ministry co-leadership here at South Church with Kirsten Hunter, our Director of Lifespan Ministry, and in collaborative ministry with all of you. I want to welcome you this morning, wherever you've come from, whatever you're carrying, whatever has you on your toes or on your guard, whatever is on your mind, you are welcome here. In this place where you can stop running for a moment in our harried and hurried world, to take a breath, maybe take a second look at everything, to step back and sit back, reflect, and connect with one another and with something larger than any one of us. This is a place to reconnect with your deeply held values and begin to make them real in community together. One of the ways we live our communal values is to lift up the truths that underlie the everyday, like that the land upon which this sanctuary was built was once the territory of the Abenaki and Pennacook nations, and like so many native people in this country, they did not cede this land and are a people for whom true justice and self-determination remain elusive. May we expand our picture of this difficult past, that we might expand our ability to imagine a more just future and envision what actions we can take to make that future real. This summer, we are exploring the theme of fresh air, fresh perspectives, fresh approaches, different ways of thinking and doing, like a service drawn almost entirely from poems and poetry, as we are offering today. Poetry is a medium that itself invites us into fresh ways of seeing, sometimes unexpected insights, occasionally fresh wisdom, perhaps a different understanding when we take them up on what they offer us. Let's see what you discover. I invite you to take a look at your order of service, which lists all the wonderful people involved in making our service happen today, including here with me, our worship associate, Willow, as well as Susan on piano, and Jen Leyden, who is leading our songs. Joanne Piazzi will offer today's Time for All Ages. And there is, as always, a whole crew behind the scenes who make worship possible week after week. Please note that after the children's story, all young people are invited to attend our religious education classes downstairs. Just follow Jen Daldeo Berry downstairs as she leads them downstairs. And everyone of every age is invited to join for fellowship right outside these doors for coffee, treats, conversation, and a challenge for you. Yeah, already, right at the very beginning. I challenge you to speak to at least one person you have not spoken to before and discover the answer to the all-important question: do they prefer the mountains or the beach? You can let me know what you discover. I'll be circling around out there with you. Please note that assisted listening devices and large print hymnals are available at the back of the sanctuary. Please ask an usher if you need assistance. Please silence your cell phone if you have one. And it is now time for some announcements.
Hold on, I'm waiting. Oh, there it is. Good morning. Lots of things to announce, so I'm going to make it short, but direct you to check out your order of service. First is that Janice Wallach will be out on the portico during social hour, signing folks up to be garden hosts for the Pocket Garden Tour in a couple of weeks. So make sure you touch base with her. You can also buy your Pocket Garden Tour tickets now. They are officially on sale. So I think there will be somebody out there doing that as well. Today also opens the day of registration for covenant groups, which used to be formerly small groups. If you're not familiar, they're small, intimate groups that meet twice a month from October through May. There's a QR code in your order of service that you can point your phone camera at, and you can go right to the registration website. And you can also find some more information on our website, which will list the days, times, and locations of all the different groups that you can choose. So make sure you check that out. Stay tuned for information about the fall retreat. That information, I believe, is coming up in the next couple of weeks. And we are also exploring whether or not to offer a cancer patient, survivor, or caretaker group. So if that is something that you're interested in, Ann Mackin, who you'll hear from in a little bit, is going to do a focus group in September to find out if that is something that we can do here at South Church. You can email her if you are interested. One last quick thing from me. I have not personally seen the bird yet this morning, but last night we had a sparrow fly into the church and hung out here in the church, and they are, a couple of people have seen the bird this morning, still possibly flying around in here. So don't be alarmed if you happen to see a bird flying around in the middle of worship today. We are aware. Tom Barry so generously brought in some bird seed, so perhaps we can try and lure the bird out. If that doesn't work, plan B is to name him, train him, and make him our own little personal carrier pigeon. So see how that goes. And I do believe that Reverend Ellen has one more thing she wants to say before we get going.
We did not plan the bird, although that is also sort of a fresh air theme, but a lot more along the lines of the fresh air theme. Next Sunday, experimental, we are going to do a question box service, which is an opportunity for you, and I'm telling you now so you can think about it, opportunity for the congregation to think about what questions you have about Unitarian Universalism, about faith, about prayer, about God, about purpose, about... I know, right? And I'll try to answer them. It will be a wonderful challenge. It will be an opportunity to explore our search for truth and meaning and to remember that there are no concrete answers, but what's important is good questions. So I invite you to think of some, and remember, this is not Stump the Minister Sunday. But I do look forward to that experiment with you all next week.
Good morning. As we light our chalice this morning, this is a chance to have a spark, an intentionally created and designed action that flashes thought into reality, ignites potential, grants light in darkness, feeds curiosity, and opens the authenticity within. It empowers connection, releasing energy, and simultaneously is contained while emitting from the chalice of the human spirit. Please join me in reading our mission statement this morning. At South Church, we nurture spiritual growth through worship, learning, and community. We celebrate the worth and dignity of all people, and we inspire one another to act on our faith in the larger community. If I haven't introduced myself yet, my name is Willow Young. I'm one of our worship associates. And it was only about a week and a half ago that I saw my calendar pop up and said, oh, you're the WA this week. So great, check in with Ellen. And I go, poetry? Okay, that seems strangely ironic to me that I would be the worship associate for a poetry service, since my default wiring is usually to babble out every possible combination of words, including a few made-up ones, to convey what probably could best be said in two. Maybe why I like to be extemporaneous, but really, I have a script today. But speaking honestly, poetry as a form of expression is not something that I generally think to seek out. And then if anyone were to ask me to think of a favorite, memorable, or transformative piece, as Ellen did, guaranteed blank slate. I would be completely unable to think of anything more than maybe a limerick, which I'd be making up there on this spot, like there once was this gal whose mind would go, well, what can I say? My memory probably doesn't index very well. But I was reminded, actually, as I was driving in this morning, my grandfather was a deaf educator. And he had this saying that he really valued, especially when folks in his community would argue vigorously over whether students should be learning sign, whether they should be learning speech and lip reading, all these things. And he said, I don't really care. If you have to bounce up and down on your head and spin like a dervish in order to be understood, then do so. And there's something that sticks to me with that, because it speaks to what really catches me inside of poetry. And it's more than just, it's more than just poetry. It's communication and it's connection. Because see, I do love a great turn of phrase. One with good timing, the right context in the moment, something that speaks to a thing that's past my intellect. In fact, because I've been thinking of this theme for the past few days, I seem to have been inundated with all these moments. It's that search that ends up unearthing the least expected. I've experienced it listening to music, watching a strongly written television show, and a number of books. And in many more forms, too. But I get that as well with maybe a strong oratory. I'll just be going along listening, and when suddenly a crack is exposed in the dam of emotional flow, the stirring of emotions becomes almost overwhelming, and invariably it's at a moment when it's entirely inconvenient. Maybe it's the cadence, the right metaphor, the universe aligning in that moment to bring together all of my thoughts and emotions into crystalline clarity. But poetry to me is formless because it exists intertwined with all the ways that we communicate. It's the author's ability to mindfully create a moment of shared experience. Not because the story is shared, but the response evoked within is a dialogue and empathy. To me, this is true magic. See, that everyone and anyone can combine language, movement, metaphor, imagery, sound, emotion, all of these into a nugget of mutual connection. Forget structure, forget the rules of language, forget meaning and understanding, and just allow spirit to coalesce together. This is when we pierce the veil. When we break the rules of language and we challenge the very structure of meaning to bring both something unique and, when done well, satisfies its only goal, to be experienced and shared in community. I invite you to stand as you are willing and able and join us in our opening hymn, number 108, My Life Flows On in Endless Song.
How can I keep from singing? Anyone who would like to come up a little closer for the Time for All Ages is invited to come on up and have a seat. Get in nice and close. You feel so far away. Hi. It's okay. Take your time. It's great. Don't look now. But God just walked in the door. If you were to turn around and look, what do you think you would see? What does God look like? Nothing? Anybody else have any ideas? It might be hard to put our idea of what God looks like into words. Maybe we can't really describe it. But there's a poet named, or a writer, not just a poet, named Cynthia Rylant, who imagined God as being just like a regular person and wrote a whole collection of poems called God Got a Dog. So I'm going to read you one of the poems. It's called God Wrote a Book. So if you thought about what book God might have written, maybe a certain book comes to mind right away. It's got the story of God, right? So Cynthia Rylant says, God wrote a book. No, not that one. Everybody thinks she wrote that one, but she didn't. She's a better writer than that. Those guys just went on, and did they bother to edit? No. But wouldn't you know, you mention a name and you're in. So they said, I didn't write it, God wrote it. A sure way of getting out of revising. If any of you have ever had to rewrite something you've written, we know we don't like that. But God wrote her own book. She wrote it for one little boy, just one. She read it to the boy at bedtime because the boy couldn't sleep. So God read him a book. The boy grew up. He became a writer. Which one? Not telling. Here's God reading the book to the little boy. What book do you think God wrote for that little boy? Do you have a favorite that you think God might have written? The Giving Tree. Maybe God wrote that. What comes to my mind is Goodnight Moon. I think that God might be so proud of the moon that they made that every night they just want to say good night to it. What do you think, Sasha? Good night, gorilla. Right. I think God probably is pretty proud of the gorillas, too. Well, so maybe this is something you can think about. What book did God write for you? I'm going to go downstairs with Jen. Maybe you can talk about that. We'll sing you out.
It's pushed. There we go. So we come now to the part of our service where we invite your help. During the month of August, we always share our collection. Well, we always share our collection every month. And during the month of August, we are sharing our collection with both Wabanaki Reach and the Kawasuk Band of Pennacook Abenaki. Wabanaki Reach seeks to build a broader and stronger community of people who understand the long-term impact of the generational harms done to Indigenous people since the first contact, and who are committed to transforming the present-day systems that provide advantages to a dominant culture. And the Kawasuk Band of the Pennacook Abenaki people provides education and services intended to preserve the life, history, culture, language, and traditions of the Abenaki people. Donations can be shared with the ushers or through the Vanco app or through our own website. We now thank you and take up the morning offering.
Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. We're all gathered here in those far away. For this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day.
I invite us to gather our hearts and minds in a spirit of prayer or meditation. It is August. Our world is lush and full and green and maybe just a little damp. Life is growing all around us. May we take it in, savor what's beautiful, the sounds of birds, crickets, crows, the laughter of children, and the gurglings of our very youngest. May we feel the warmth of the sun when it is out, and the warmth of each other's presence when we are together in space or in time. May we have gratitude for anything that is good today, even if it is just getting out of bed, logging into this worship service, being here with us in whatever way you are here with us. May we celebrate that which is good around us. In this season of send-offs, many of South Church's beloved youth are entering a new stage of life. Let us wish them well in new adventures Jackson Adams, Caden Cole, Elena Eves, Alice Cease, and every young person who is embarking on their next step, close by or far away. May the threads of our love connect us to them and them to us, so they know they always have a place to call home. And may we hold in our hearts all those who are making their way on some new path, including ourselves. In this special sacred time, may we also open our hearts also to that which is difficult in our lives or in the lives of those we love. The struggles we see that we can't fix. The issues we witness in our world that we can't set right by ourselves. May we have the courage to be aware and awake to who or what is hurting, flooding, burning, or not right. In our awareness, in our awakeness, may new life grow. And may we remember that we are held, we are whole, even as we learn again how to live and learn again how to love. Amen. Holding all that is in our hearts, I invite you in a moment to come forward for our time of lighting candles, a public witness to inner cares and joys. Please remember, if you are going through a difficult time, I am here. Kirsten is here, as are your pastoral associates. If you need us, please fill out a card in your pew or come find me or email me or them after the service. We are here for you. I now invite you to light a candle for a joy or a sorrow that is in you today. I'd like to begin with a poem by Billy Collins, best-selling author and former U.S. Poet Laureate. He is also a professor of poetry, so I imagine he spent some time teaching poetry to those who were less familiar with it. The poem is called Introduction to Poetry. I ask them to take a poem and hold it up to the light like a color slide, or press an ear against its hive. I say, drop a mouse into a poem and watch him probe his way out. Or walk inside the poem's room and feel the walls for a light switch. I want them to water ski across the surface of a poem, waving at the author's name on the shore. But all they want to do is tie the poem to a chair with a rope and torture a confession out of it. They begin beating it with a hose to find out what it really means. I'm pretty sure I did that. In 10th grade English class, I tortured a confession out of more than one poem, and it almost put an end to my ability to hear them. And my invitation to you for this service is to not do that. To leave the rope on the chair, put down the hose, and instead take up the invitation to feel for that light switch. To drop the mouse of your curiosity inside one or two of the poems you will hear and see what happens as you probe your way out. To imagine pressing your ear against the hive of these words and just take in what you hear. That is my hope for us. The group you will hear today came to a poetry gathering I hosted a few weeks ago. It was sweet and poignant and connecting and beautiful. There was a lot of gentle curiosity and light and listening. I don't know about water skiing, but I felt energized by the end of our time together. And in experiencing that group, I was reminded why poems and worship go together so well for me. There's this tenderness of a sharing of a poem and the story of the why of this poem. There's the warmth of the hearing. And then there's the way that poems place the personal, the everyday, side by side with the unfathomable and uncontainable. Not unlike the kind of sacred texts that inspire religious worship, which take the ordinary, maybe even mundane, and find the possibilities for holiness. There is this invitation that pulls us out, this camera lens, to see the whole of life, from its mysterious beginning to its unknowable ending, and place our lives on that broad canvas. Today, we have 7 wonderful readers, some of whom brought a poem they wrote. Some have brought a poem they love that someone else wrote. There is a QR code in your order of service if you want to see the text of the poems for which we had permission to print them. As they offer what they're bringing, may we listen and wonder and hear and hold and breathe in what is shared.
Good morning. I'm B.J. Lates. My husband Dick and I are trained hospice volunteers. We have accompanied people on their final journeys by acting as companions, and by singing at bedside with the Journey Song singers. Many people think this work is somewhat maudlin and emotionally draining. In truth, it is the direct opposite. The opportunity to support people who will be leaving this life sooner rather than later is such an honor and is filled with incredibly personal moments which can pierce your heart. Moments of laughter, new insights, courage, and grief can all occur. We walk away enriched by our companions' gifts that they have so graciously shared with us. With increasing age and our hospice experiences, we are drawn to how we use the last few years of our lives. I see birth and death as two sacred moments. These moments require the very best of us. Our effort to live fully until our end times means being free from fear and filled with purposeful living. My poem today is entitled Breathing In, Breathing Out. At first, the dark and silence, then an increasing light. The rim slowly moves up from the horizon, climbing ever higher. Returning once again, the full sphere shows itself. The sun rises from the depths, and the heart opens. Time is laid out before us, offering hope and promise. The silence is lost to the chatter of birds. Now the light changes. We do not plan on this time. It comes on its own, sneaking into our lives. The slight coloring of the sky with soft pinkish tones as the sun slides back down to the horizon. A golden aura surrounds all. The fire comes, orange, red, and gold, burning up the remains of the day. The ball leaves us as the embers hold the last light. Silence returns. Hushed awe remains. Two sacred moments, the opening up and the closing down. Breathing in, breathing out. The bellows fill, the bellows empty. Breathing in, breathing out. The wild embracing and the quiet letting go. Breathing in, breathing out.
There it is, birth to death, opening heart, opening life, beauty, promise, and a slow shift from sunrise toward a golden closing. Beginnings and endings, in and out, the broad canvas of our lives upon which we paint our everyday, this day. What might we learn on this day? What might we savor today?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Judith Castle. The poem I'm going to read is called In the Middle. It's by Barbara Crooker. I like this poem because it expresses two aspects of my life as I now experience it. One is my consciousness of the accelerated pace of my life, days and years rushing by me pell-mell. The other is my heightened awareness of the importance of time spent with those I love, which is why I love hiking. When I hike, I see my husband ahead of me on the trail, the sunlight flows through the trees, and time stops. All is well. Now the poem, In the Middle, by Barbara Crooker. In the middle of a life that's as complicated as everyone else's, struggling for balance, juggling time, the mantel clock that was my grandfather's has stopped at 9:20. We haven't had time to get it repaired. The brass pendulum is still, the chimes don't ring. One day you look out the window, green summer. The next, and the leaves have already fallen, and a gray sky lowers the horizon. Our children almost grown, our parents gone. It happened so fast. Each day we must learn again how to love, between morning's quick coffee and evening's slow return. Steam from a pot of soup rises, mixing with the yeasty smell of baking bread. Our bodies twine, and the big black dog pushes his great head between. His tail is a metronome, 3/4 time. We'll never get there. Time is always ahead of us, running down the beach, urging us on, faster, faster. But sometimes we take off our watches. Sometimes we lie in the hammock, caught between the mesh of rope and the net of stars, suspended, tangled up in love, running out of time. I just wanted to say a couple of words about the poem, though I certainly don't want to beat it to death, and I know I'm on perilous ground because there's a rope in here too. So I wanted to read the last couple of lines to you again. Sometimes we take off our watches. Sometimes we lie in the hammock, caught between the mesh of rope and the net of stars, suspended, tangled up in love, running out of time. With rope beneath us and stars above us, we're suspended, and it is that word that tells us that, at least temporarily, time has been suspended, and in running out of time, we have stepped out of the rush of time.
What can we learn? What can we see when we step out of the rush of time, out of our thoughts, and come back to the metronome, thumping beat of our lives in this moment, in this summer, in you and in me and in everything? Our next two poets invite us to do just that, to come to our senses right now and take it all in, this verdant earth that is all around us.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Alice Timmins, and I live in South Berwick on the Great Works River, deep in the woods. Like many of you, I love to hike. I love to walk on the Power Company Road with my dog. And as I hike, I tend to listen for the music that nature provides to us. And after one of those hikes, this was the experience that came to me in verse. So this is an original poem, and it's called Finch Aria. I take the dirt road left along a margin of dusty scrub oaks and pleated beech leaves. A listening pace, soft, even steps drumming the evening road. Out on a quivering branch, a yellow tuxedo in full finch view, his open furtive throat wiggling grace notes, scattering flecks of golden sound. His simple stanza flicks the sky, 9 notes rising, quickening, a descant popping aloft. My toe barely scuffs the road. This careless puff sprays dozens of frenetic finches out of these beaches. A disarray of harps, strings, bows, flinging up, fanning out, stirring the air with a palpable trilling, trilling, trilling. They reassemble in mid-flight, low over South Berwick power lines. Their adagio swerves under, then skyrolls over the wires. Finally, the flock kites across the meadow. They choose a hefty white pine well away from boots and roads. Finches pour as one into the branches, camouflaged, pine needles. A long rest note, conspiratorial silence. I steady my feet, tilt, and cup my ear, till faintly a singular voice, that hypnotic scale, 9 notes piping, ascending, a singular finch aria pierces the meadow. Eventually, but not yet, the soft rhythm of my leather boots will accompany me home.
Good morning. My name is Ann Mackin, and I'm going to read a poem called The Audience, Not the Show, which I wrote. I wrote it in a time of recovery from a long illness, when I was spending a lot of time in nature, and that was helping me envision a life with less angst and striving than had previously characterized my journey through the world. Can you all hear me? The audience, not the show. What if I never achieve another thing than lying here in the sunlit grass with the creaturely miracle of my breathing and the small accomplishments of squirrels, the weather-softened bits of acorn shell imprinting on the back of my shoulder? What if I'm meant to be soaking up the happiness in sunlight, joining other species in the great audience to wonders large and small? The light shifts at insect speed, while overhead the branches sway. The leaves flicker and murmur a music of ancient memory that lulls me into the vast listening and watching.
Into that vastness, let us invite some poetry from that book that Joanne was not referring to, that was not written by God, but which contains a tremendous amount of poetry. This will be a sung poem from the book of Ecclesiastes, followed by the vastness offered by 2 poets after Jen sings.
To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to build up, a time to break down. A time to dance, a time to mourn, a time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones together. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven.
I am Lance. I would like to read this poem to you, but the last time I attempted to share this Mary Oliver poem entitled Ice, I began to cry. Then I became more choked up and was unable to finish. If I'm unable to continue, Reverend Ellen will take over the reading. Ice by Mary Oliver. My father spent his last winter making ice grips for shoes out of strips of inner tube and scrap metal, a device which slips over the instep and holds under the shoe a section of roughened metal. It allows you to walk without fear of falling anywhere on ice or snow. My father should not have been doing all of that close work in the drafty workshop, but as though he sensed travel at the edge of his mind, he would not be stopped. My mother wore them, and my aunt, and my cousins. He wrapped and mailed a dozen pairs to me in the easy snows of Massachusetts, and a dozen to my sister in California. Later, we learned he'd given them away to neighbors, an old man appearing with cold blue cheeks at every door. No one refused him, for plainly the giving, now I'm going to get through this. For plainly the giving was an asking, a petition to be welcomed and useful, or maybe, who knows, the seed of a desire not to be sent alone over the black ice. Now the house seems neater, books half read, set back on the shelves, unfinished projects put away. This spring, Mother writes to me, I am cleaning the workshop, and I have found so many pairs of the ice grips, cartons and suitcases full, more than we can ever use. What shall I do? And I see myself alone in that house with nothing but darkly gleaming cliffs of ice, the sense of distant explosions. Blindness as I look for my coat, and I write back, Mother, please save everything. Well, I'm glad that's over. Death is a subject I can intellectually comprehend. Everyone dies. That's obvious. But I often find myself at a loss for words when it comes to this topic of death and how to express my condolences to survivors. My words always seem puny and totally inadequate. I love this poem because I feel Mary's response to her mother's question, what to do with the overwhelming quantity of ice grips, is very emotional and irrational. Save everything, that is to me a sort of desperate declaration of love and a protest against her father's death. Save everything is not a rational, calm, grounded response. In its own way, ice connects with my immediate gut reaction to the topic of death. Over the past 5,000 years of recorded history, there have been millions of things written about death, maybe sometimes more sophisticated, more detached, and more philosophical than this poem. But ice, with its visceral response, has a unique place in my heart and my gut. Mary Oliver died in 2019. I wonder if she chose to be buried with a pair of ice grips.
Hi, my name's Alice O'Trainer, and I'm going to read a poem that my husband wrote. But first, I wanted to explain that we both grew up in the seacoast here, and in fact graduated from Portsmouth High a million years ago. Wait a minute, I saw a classmate of mine who came up before, way back in 1962. We were gone for many years and really looked forward to coming back. Our dream was to come back and spend some time back in our hometown. Unfortunately, Michael was diagnosed with a glioblastoma brain tumor the day before the movers were due to come to bring us to Portsmouth. So our homecoming wasn't quite what we wanted. However, walking through the doors of this church brought an enormous gift to us, because so many of you, and I see you out there, came to visit, came to sit with him, and allow me to go out and run errands or whatever. One of those people was Kathy Wolf, who many of you know. She and Michael soon learned that they were both writers. He had written for a column in the New Hampshire Sunday News for 7 years, and Kathy worked for the Associated Press. So she started bringing over pieces she had written, and she would go to the bookcase and pull out one of the binders and read one of the pieces he had written, and they so enjoyed, like Michael so enjoyed his time with her. They had a wonderful time. So one of the poems that he shared with her was this poem called Companion. And I was struck by BJ's talk at the beginning, talking about her hospice work as a companion. But he had it published, or it was picked up and published in one of the major textbooks for high schoolers that was used up in Canada. And this is how it reads. This small stone's been with me all day. Small stone, rubbed by many, cut by a few, rubbed many others, and cut some too. Found it on a shoal, quite cold, not used to being held. Absently caressed its wear while watching waves come home. Twice I went to toss it, yet didn't. Don't know why. But a small stone, rubbed by many, cut by a few, rubbed many others, and cut some too, as I. Kathy was struck by the poem, and so the next time she came, she brought a beach stone with her so that Michael could have a new companion. And after he died, I went to wash his clothes, and in the bathrobe that he wore during his final weeks, wouldn't you know, there was Kathy's poem, Kathy's stone, a companion to the end.
On the broad canvas of our lives, from mysterious birth to gold fire ending, may the thump of a puppy's tail or the thump of our own hearts remind us we are in this day. May we take in the beauty and the lightness of it, witness the trial and the ever-present grief of it, honor the vast magnificence of it, maybe saving everything, or maybe savoring everything. As we rub up against one another in all the seasons of our lives, may we care for each other and companion each other. As spiritual leader Ram Dass once said, we are all just walking each other home. May it be so. Amen. Let us join together for our closing song. It is printed in your order of service. Turn, turn, turn. Please rise in body or in spirit.
To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to reap, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to laugh, a time to weep. To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to build up, a time to break down, a time to dance, a time to mourn, a time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones together. To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time of love, a time of hate, a time of war, a time of peace. A time you may embrace, a time to refrain from embracing. To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to gain, a time to lose, a time to reign, a time of soul, a time of love, a time for hate, a time for peace. I swear it's not too late. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time to every purpose under heaven.
The light from our chalice within our souls sometimes is so easily extinguished. A gentle breeze, a light touch, a closing of the lid, a splash of water. All take the flame from our chalice, and yet wisps of smoke drift up into the room, and may what we have discovered linger, smudging us with a tattoo upon our souls, offering the possibility of warmth and understanding to all that we encounter.
Good rising. My name is Jane Kavanaugh, and I'm going to read a poem by a wonderful Gaelic poet named John O'Donoghue. The name of the poem, we think, is Banach, but since none of us speak Gaelic, we're really not sure. On the day when the weight deadens on your shoulders and you stumble, may the clay dance to balance you. And when your eyes freeze behind the gray window and the ghost of loss gets into you, may a flock of colors, indigo, red, green, and azure blue, come to awaken in you a meadow of delight. When the canvas frays in the currach of thought and a stain of ocean blackens beneath you, may there come across the waters a path of yellow moonlight to bring you safely home. May the nourishment of the earth be yours. May the clarity of the light be yours. May the fluency of the ocean be yours. May the protection of the ancestors be yours. And so may a slow wind work these words of love around you, an invisible cloak to mind your life.